There are these things called rhythm games, for the unfamiliar, in which 160 BPM, beats per minute, is considered the difficulty threshold, beginning to separate the hardcore and the non-hardcore players. For a 40-plus-year-old adult, 160 BPM heart rate is considered vigorous intensity, helping move a standard cardio exercise beyond just fat burning into the heartbeat's target range for endurance and lactate tolerance. Thank you, Google. Higher fitness level runners frequently push for harder but sustainable paces, where a common average heart rate while running, you guessed it, is 160 beats per minute. And in music, 160 BPMs is well-known range for pop music. For music that especially affects a certain positive outlook or response. Popular examples: Pharrell Williams' Happy, Taylor Swift Shake It Off, Lenny Kravitz Fly Away, 160 BPMs. There's a theory in musicology that certain tempos just, work. They resonate with the human nervous system. In the world of electronic music, 160 beats per minute is a frenetic high energy sweet spot. The sound of the club, of the digital age. But long before the first drum machine was ever plugged in, that same 160 BPMs was already the heart of the traditional powwow. It was the tempo of the drum, the pace of the dancer, the rhythm of a story. Sometimes history and technology aren't at odds. They're just waiting for someone to notice they've been in sync the whole time. Shub, originally known as DJ Shub, is the producer who noticed. In his early days with A Tribe Called Red, he pioneered the beat of his passion, electronic music, and his passion for culture and the powwow. Shub started out in small town Canada, influenced by a bigger scene across the border in Buffalo, New York, and became a world-renowned turntablist, winning battles and mixing vinyl beats before mixing cultures. A Juno Award winner, both with A Tribe Called Red and in his solo career, he has become proficient at orchestrating his moves along with his grooves. I guess you saw that coming. The metaphorical significance is kind of immediate. A man who has spent so much of his life moving people in rooms and around the world through his mastery of 160 beats per minute, also admitting that a career like his, like many's, comes down to timing. Humility admits such things. Passion and practice step up to the turntables when the moment arrives. My name is Glenn Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thanks for spending your time with us. This is Shub. I guess it's just Shub, right? It just goes by Shub now. No, the DJ moniker isn't as primary.
Just Shub.
You're wearing a Sabres hat. Is that a specific playoff representation moment for you today here?
Well,
okay, awesome. Big thumbs up.
I grew up a Sabres fan, so I've been going to Sabres games since I was a little kid. My dad used to take me all the time, so. Just like Buffalo Bills, I was kind of born into being a fan. I just got this tattoo. I don't know if you can see it. The Bills logo tattoo. Yeah. So I'm a lifer when it comes to New York, Buffalo, New York's sports, professional sport.
Well, I love seeing the lifer representation. That's pretty awesome. So was that a quick hop from where you were located? Like, I know Buffalo's kind of, easily accessible across the border. So that was particularly where you were. It was a geographical accessible thing.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Buffalo, but I mean, I
didn't know that. That's great.
My family quickly moved to Fort Erie. When I was just young, like I think 1 year old is when we moved over. So I wasn't there long, but so we moved to Fort Erie, which is the border town here in Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah. I have a similar history. I'm in Edmonton right now. I was born in Edmonton. My whole family's from here, but from 1 year old, 11 months old, I was raised in Saskatchewan. So I grew up like a Edmonton at the time, Eskimos, CFL football fan, in the face of a bunch of Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans where I lived and then everybody still would ask me, oh, you grew up, you must be a Rider fan. I'm like, no. And same with the Oilers, was old enough when they came into the league to be a young boy, and always identified even though I wasn't there. Yeah. Well, I love to talk with people about their whole career, where they've kind of gotten to where they are now, dig into a little bit of where they came from as well as what you're doing now. I know you're on the cusp of Heritage Part 2 project that you have released. I want to be able to talk with you a little bit about that. But definitely interested in sort of how Shub came to be Shub. So, you just sort of tapped on sort of where you started from. I guess one of my initial questions right off the bat is like your influences. And sometimes I think in music, it has a lot to do with geography. When you read like, how did the guys in Brooklyn come to create the Brooklyn sound, or how they got influenced, or, this Seattle area, but then in genres, it changes completely too. And you're, a DJ, you're producing electronic music, in Canada, that seems very much more location specific. I'm a Western Canadian. I've almost never run across, people who is like, this is my whole scene. There was no such scene. So, I'm sort of curious how you came to your influences, either through geography, or what was the thing that really exposed you that kind of got you started?
Well, I would say it's a little bit of both. Growing up, my parents, naturally you just listen to what your parents were listening to when you're a little kid, right? So like, yeah. For me, my dad was a classic rock guy. Like I grew up listening to Doobie Brothers, Molly Hatchet, that sort of music in the house. And then my mom, she loved her disco. She loved her Jackson 5. She loved her Donna Summers, so there was a cool mix of disco and rock in my house. You know what I mean? So through my parents, I think what really sparked the whole love for like electronic music and hip hop and all that stuff was I have an older brother. He's 6 years older than me, and he was a DJ. So he used to DJ at college bars in Buffalo. So I grew up like just watching him DJ, and then I would just tag along with him to the record stores to collect music to, for his collection. So I would be with him going through records and just listening to, and it was funny because his job as a college DJ was basically to play everything. You know what I mean? Like, so he would be playing everything from mainstream hip hop to alternative to grunge, to everything. So, I mean, which really I think inspired me too, as far as being a DJ later in life, just seeing what really moves the crowd and like what music do I play. It's just, so I a huge part of my inspiration and where my influence comes from is my older brother. Like I said, he was a DJ, and he was the one that actually bought me my first. He saw how interested I was in DJing, and at the time, I had friends who were in bands in high school, and they really I wanted to be involved in the band somehow. So I took guitar lessons, and I took drumming lessons, and so I really thought I was going to be that kind of active in the music scene that way. But when I fell in love with DJing and all that happened, a lot of my friends' bands were playing a lot of stuff like Limp Bizkit and Deftones and sort of that 90s rock hip hop stuff. You know what I mean? So they asked me, they said, you should get turntables and be in our band. You know what I mean? So it was like a mixture of both my friends' pressure and then just the love of it. My brother was like, yeah, I'll get you turntables, and bought me turntables for my birthday. And
that's amazing.
I bought a couple of like battle records, and that's where it all started. Just jamming with a bunch of bands.
Yeah. That rap rock thing really had a little nugget of time that it really took off there. Right. Yeah. Like
it's funny because it seems like it's coming back. Right. Because like my son is 18 now, and And then I catch him listening to some Deftones and some stuff once in a while. So I mean, all that
Yeah,
music.
my boy's 23, 22 last year. He came back because his whole playlist changed when he started becoming a gym bro and going to the gym really hard. And he came back with Deftones also. I'm like, I'd never imagined this ever happening. I thought that was pretty crazy. It's funny how you said like the older brother is an influence. It's amazing how often I hear it. I mean, I had Ace and Abby on only last month, and he, same thing. He had this older brother whose record collection really, his brother moved out and left his records behind, quite a few years older than him. So, and then who was it? I was listening to another podcast. Oh, it was Anderson .Paak. He was telling his story about DJing and going and collecting records. And it made me think, he talked about how he needed help just to haul the crates of records to his gigs. And I was like, made me wonder whether your brother was just employing you to haul crates of albums around for his DJ shows.
He used to DJ with CDs. So I remember he would DJ.
Oh, okay.
His first setup was like one of those.
So economical. That's great.
Yeah. Early CDJ mixing things. So yeah. So he mixed on. So yeah, you didn't have to carry around huge crates. I think you figured that.
That's progressive.
Yeah. But I went
that's so progressive.
I went to vinyl, and I tried to find those friends to help me bring those crates of records, but I never did. So kept me in shape. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's you just can't escape hauling your own gear, no matter what version in this industry you decide to jump into, right? Exactly. So here's one of the things I found interesting about you, and I don't know whether you feel about it the same for yourself, but from the outside perspective, you seem to hit success relatively young, pretty quick, right? Like, I don't know whether those opportunities, even just the way we all develop kind of locally with whatever is quickly available to play for people or at places, happened very quickly, but winning a Canadian title, right, for your DJ competitions in 2007 and 8, representing Canada at Red Bull tournament, those are those are like climbing the ladder, like in that world, which is a world I don't know a ton about. So that's why I have a lot of questions for you about it also. And I'm so interested, but how does one get from the brother bought me some turntables to, not a terrible long period of time to like winning the competitions, finding out what it takes to win the competitions? How does that evolve?
Well, again, it's like, being influenced by my friends. Like I had the friends that I used to hang around with were amazing musicians, like guitar players, right? And they would always put me on to new stuff. And when the DJing thing came around, they were the ones that were really like, hey, you should check this out. It's called the DMCs, and it's like a big DJ battle, and DJs battle each other. So I was not too familiar with that at first, and then I went out and I started buying up all these VHS tapes, because as of the time, that's where you would watch these videos, was on VHS tapes. You go to the record store and they would have like a little glass container full of all these VHS battles. So I just started buying those and collecting those and learning from those tapes, and those tapes are like a huge part of why I decided to be a battle DJ and a scratch DJ. A turntablist is what they call us. And yeah, I just basically studied those tapes. I would stay in all the time, sacrifice going out, and just stay home and watch those videos and just kind of deconstruct it and watch what they do. And then I would just practice for 2 hours and then watch another video and practice for another 2 hours. So it was just dedication. And like, it's really cool that they showed me this. And then, it took me like a good year to really get to the point where I was kind of confident enough to be like, okay, well, these competitions happen in Canada. I'm gonna go and try it. Give it throw my hat in the ring. So yeah, it was just like it was a cool time. It took me about a year to kind of like I said, to get comfortable where I was comfortable enough to compete. And I think my first competition was in 2004. And it was not the DMCs, but it was the Guitar Center. You ever hear Guitar Center? It's like a big
Yeah.
It's like America's Long and McQuaid sort of thing. So they used to have this thing called the DJ spinoff, and I used to go to Guitar Center all the time since I live in Fort Erie. Buffalo's right there, so I used to go there all the time to like buy needles and I remember going there with records, and they would just let me try out their stuff and scratch in the store, and people would come like, oh wow, what's this? And so that built up my confidence, and I ended up competing in one of their competitions, and I ended up making it. I won this local store competition, and they flew me off to Detroit that year to compete in like the regionals. Or I got my ass handed to me by some other dude that was really good. I forget his name, but Obi-Wan, I think his name was. But he ended up going and winning a bunch of, almost winning the whole thing. So I didn't feel so bad. But it was that competition where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for the DMCs. And the DMCs was it stands for Disco Mix Club, but it's not like, if you're not too familiar with the DMCs, now it's just, it became like a hip hop competition. So, each contestant, you go and you get you have 6 minutes. So you have 6 minutes to kind of put together a routine that that has to involve certain things. And there's like a big score sheet kind of thing that judges. There's previous champions that usually sit in and judge you. So there's lots of things that you got to hit, as you're competing. You got to hit originality, crowd response, technical skill, and stuff like that. So, I thought I was ready for that kind of competition. So I entered my first DMC battle in 2005, in Hamilton and in Toronto. And I came in second place in both those competitions. So I was like, okay, it's cool. I'm confident enough to know that I can compete with these guys. So and that's it. As soon as I tasted that, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm doing nothing but practicing, and this is all I'm going to do. So I for a solid year, that's all I did. My parents would always tell me, all I can hear is the noise of the fader clicking, because I'm scratching so much. All I can hear is that, but they supported whatever I did, and it was amazing. Like I said, I just practiced for like a solid year, not going out like a hermit. And the next year ended up competing again and winning, the local. So it was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, at least with your craft, you were doing it in headphones, so they were hearing just the click of the fader, not a drum kit in the basement. At least they had that to be.
I think if it was
totally thankful for.
Yeah,
it might have been different. Yeah. The other funny thing, it made me think when you were talking about the routines and how they judge. Like, do they judge when you say they're looking for specific things? Is there like specific things everybody is supposed to pull off and do that might have a technical term? Like, it makes me think like a figure skating routine where they all have to pull off a triple Salchow or something. Kind of. Is there is there a drop? Is there a thing that has to take place in the 6 minutes?
So they want to see your scratching ability. Another big thing is called beat juggling, where you can take like 2 copies of records or like 2 records and kind of mess with them a bit and beat juggle and just to construct. It's almost like you're constructing a live remix in front of someone's face, like by using 2 identical records, playing different parts of it to kind of make this whole new song. So that is a bit like, the better you can do that, it's more of, they can gauge your skills. So if you're really good at both of those things, you get put up in the top 1 or whatever. That's how they pretty much judge you. Out of 10, they score you out of 10 out of each thing. So, so it's just a point system, and then so they're markers, see what you need to hit. So scratching, you're making sure that you're really good at scratching, and they know that they're ex-champions. They've been around the scene for a bit, so they can tell. I've been a judge at competitions in the past years. So you're very critical on who's doing what, and the skills levels and stuff like that. So it's pretty good. Sometimes you get into politics, you get like people that win that weren't supposed to, but that's with any kind of competition, But for majority, it was, it's an underground competition, so it's always cool.
Yeah. Well, good to know that like musical competition politics, there's a meritocracy. Everybody has to go through it. Maybe not a good thing, but
the worse it gets, obviously, like everything else, like, you get to the world level, which I was able to do, in 2007. I won the Canadian finals, and then they flew me over to England. In England, they have the World Finals, which is like the Olympics of DJing. So you're going up against like 32 other countries. So you get to that level. Politics, is a thing there kind of too, but not as bad as the local politics is crazy. Local politics is the worst. Regionals are the worst because then you get like radio DJs that get their friends in there to win. You know what I mean? But when you're on the world level, it's a different thing. You have all ex world champions now are judging you. So it's a different level, and you win on that world level, which was my thing, was like, oh man, to win a world championship, you're set for life because you become the world champion. And also they give you the award as 2 gold Techniques 1200 turntables and a gold mixer. So it's like they're limited edition. They only make 2 of them every year for that competition. So it was like, wow, that's what you want. So
yeah, it's literally like the
closest I ever came was 6th place. So I placed 6 out of 32 DJs. That's the closest I came. So I was kind of happy. But my goal
was pretty damn close.
Yeah, my goal was to just be, because those are the DVDs I used to watch. So my goal was get on the DVD. So that's a cool accomplishment for me.
Exactly.
So being on one of those world final DVDs was like, okay, I did it. You know what I mean? So I didn't win the gold, but at least I'm on the these tapes that I used to watch. So
yeah. Well, I have curiosity about how one builds a career in electronic music in general. Like my background, and I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of genres, I should say, to try to get a better understanding, because I have such a curiosity, because I've got this deeply Canadian, I'm air quoting, entrenched like history and ethic, partially to do with my age, I think, of, you kind of just started with your expanding your circle more and more, and it was the tried and true in Canada. Like, you do a ridiculously long drive to play a club, to another long drive and play a club, and then you just keep going back and forth year after year until the clubs get bigger and bigger, but the length of the drive is still the same. And that's the only sort of way to rise the ranks is in a rock band, right? So I'm always deeply curious about how this happens. And I recognize that part of this is maybe splitting the conversation a little bit, because I'm also curious inside of that, if I can say, about, the DJ world, which is, how you get a career, how you sort of sustain income, how you sort of increase and grow that career in DJing, which, obviously is pretty well entrenched in our world, but how you sort of transition that into, in electronic music and DJing, this, what feels from my outside perspective, the blurry line of creating original music, right? And started moving into like albums, and you're collabing with people and stuff. So a couple of things inside of there, but, maybe we can just start with how one just starts to build a career, like whether these competitions have an immediate payoff to the kind of either house gigs you might get at the best venues, or how that happens, and if there's a pretty direct correlation between the reputation of the competitions and the DJ gigs you get.
So I'm going to take you back just a little bit.
Sure.
As I was DJing, like I started the DJing, this was probably back in 99 is when I started DJing. And at the same time, I also discovered producing. So I also discovered like drum sequencing and stuff on the computer. And so those two kind of started at the same time. I used a DOS program called Impulse Tracker to make my first set of like beats, right? So, and that basically was you just import wave files and kind of line them up. So yeah, I started doing that as the same time I started DJing. So, the two, were my two loves, for music. And so eventually this ties into like, after my career as a battle DJ happened, at the same time, I was still always just producing too. I was, hip hop and early electronic stuff. And like, I first started doing hip hop. That was like my first thing. And then I just started getting into that Chemical Brothers type of stuff, that Crystal Method, all that, Prodigy. So like after my battle career was finished in around 2009, and 2009 was like my last year I battled. There was this thing happening out in Ottawa. So out in Ottawa, there was this party happening that I didn't know about called the Electric Powwow. And what it was there was a couple of indigenous DJs that were setting up shop at a club in Ottawa and throwing a monthly party. And that party was originally meant for all the First Nation students that were at the schools, at the universities and colleges out there, because there's a whole bunch of them out there. And so what it was just a kind of a night for them to kind of a comfortable space for them to come in and be amongst your own people and have a good time. And at those parties, those DJs would play, they would mix in traditional powwow songs into their mix, into their regular rotation of songs. And they noticed that when they would throw those on, the dance club would get packed and people would love it. So that being said, after I got a call from one of them, somebody reached out and they noticed that I was indigenous DJ that did this whole big competition thing, and they wanted me to come out to do a showcase at their electric powwows. So I said, yeah, for sure, I'll come out and play. So it was that night I went out and played their party in Ottawa. I saw the reaction of these people when they started playing the traditional powwow music and mixing it with like dubstep and stuff. And it was something cool that I'd never heard before. I've heard those two genres, but not like together like this. And to see the reaction of the people, it was just a chilling moment for me. And as being a producer, things started going in my head. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. This is something I could try to do. And I told them, I was like, hey, I'm going to try to, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a producer as well. I'm going to try to do something. And so I just went home with that idea and I started messing around with some traditional music and mixing it with some dubstep, and out came the first song that was released under a tribe called Red, which was called Electric Power Drum. So I sent them that song, and right away they were like, holy, this is amazing. They gave me the invite. They said, you want to be a part of this DJ collective? And I says, absolutely, for sure. I wasn't doing nothing at the time. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I moved out to Ottawa and began working with them and as a group. And that's when the term Powwow Step was kind of coined, of this new genre of music that we were doing. And it just got picked so quickly. Like I tell people all the time, it's really, a lot of music's about timing and when it comes out, and like, So when we were releasing that music, there was a big movement called Idle No More. I don't know if you remember. And it was a very huge indigenous movement about land and just people, our people being sick and tired of having to, scream to get our voices heard. That became, our music kind of became like the soundtrack to all those rallies they used to have. They used to have like pop-up drum circles everywhere, and our music would be everywhere. And so it was a combination of that time and then our music, it sparked something in people, and we just started getting crazy gigs as a Tribe Called Red. We started, right the first year we were touring. I was touring probably like 9 months out of the year. It was insane. We got invited out overseas, to Greece to play like big world music festivals. And it was just perfect timing. And then we ended up winning a Juno, as a Tribe Called Red not long after that. And so, it's been, I've been lucky. And like I said, like I wasn't really into that much electronic music. And then when I met those guys, they really taught me a lot, as far as like the DJ side and like the music side of things. And like they would, here, check this track out, like here's this new electronic music. And so they put me onto a lot of new stuff, and it just, that really helped when it came down to producing this Powwowstep music. And that's pretty much where that went.
Yeah. I mean, so a Tribe Called Red, like, you mentioned already, like they end up winning a Juno. They have a lot of success in a space that was barely occupied in Canada, really, right? At least anywhere close to the mainstream understanding, for sure, right? So that's like a space that they really, I mean, you can count on in one hand how many groups have an opportunity to actually pioneer a space, right? I think that they definitely kind of hold that title. And so you met up with those guys. They were already doing things as a Tribe Called Red, sort of before you had joined up.
Okay. Yeah, so they were really throwing parties and just DJing. So it was until I joined when the actual production, the original production, came into their into that space. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty wild. So obviously you got a lot of opportunities with them. You probably it creates some travel opportunity. It creates a lot more exposure, both probably to the business, which maybe showed you some new things. I'm sure anytime someone, when I talk to them, they get a quick schooling on so many different aspects of the music industry. When things start to, as you said, the timing works and things start to take off. I'm wondering what, you sort of hinted at some of them, but what were sort of, as far as like you still having a career today, when you look back to that time, what were some of the things that really have stayed with you through the test of time that either you really learned or just sort of like got ingrained in your muscle memory about what kind of artist you wanted to be? What were some of the building blocks of that crucial timing?
I think it's just staying true to the art form and staying true to the culture. I think those are the two biggest things. I mean, when you see a live show, for me anyway, when you hear, oh, you're going to see a DJ, nowadays, a lot of people go out and, they just think they're just going to see somebody just playing records or playing songs, like I call them human jukeboxes. Yeah. iTunes can do what they do. But you come onto a show like me, like my show, and you get to see something different that you haven't seen, whether it is scratching, the art of turntablism, the visuals that I present at my show as well. And then usually when I have shows, I bring traditional dancers with me as well. So I think the biggest thing is incorporating that culture and keeping it alive and continuing in that culture and bringing it to new spaces, which is my favorite thing is to bring this show and this message to spaces that normally we wouldn't be there. Like for instance, this year, we're playing, I'm playing a gig at FIFA World Cup, you know what I mean? So it's a great opportunity
in Vancouver.
So it's a great opportunity to showcase, our culture, and those are the opportunities that I get to have, which I'm so thankful for.
Yeah. I have a friend through my history and she graced me with being on the podcast in my first season. I don't know if you've worked with Chris Dirksen before. Okay, awesome. I love the way that she's obviously done the mashup too of like, not just culture, but, being a cellist and then, developing this looping, very unique style of playing, working with orchestras and blending these things. And just being very, exactly. The orchestral powwow and being very fierce about not just one thing, but the blending of the things and how important it was, kind of really always stood out to me in the same way. So I reading about how you came about the Powwow Step and just realizing in your lane, right, with the electronic, realizing how much music, I think it's 160 BPMs is sort of that common place. And you're like, how much of this was like literally the same as these traditional Powwow Steps BPMs, for lack of a better term, right? And then that's where you sort of grew this like, well, this is a mashup waiting to happen. Plus, I love you being able to articulate then you being able to see and witness live the effect it had on people when it actually happened, which is really where it all comes down to. How did that continue to develop and grow from there? Like, how does that sort of grow into a bigger thing? How did you find a way to kind of get that out more? Was it mostly through the reach that a Tribe Called Red had, or were there other opportunities that it really kind of doors opened to that?
Yeah, I think it was you know, a lot of it had to do with the management that we had at the time, you know, like having them, because we could only take it so far, and especially as First Nations artists, you know, like we're really, you know, a lot of us are new to this whole thing. Like, you talk to some First Nations artists, and they don't even you know, a lot of them don't even have management, you know, a management team to help them get to the next level. And that's what it's all about. It's like getting to that next level. And we know we had something, and we needed to get to that next level. And so, you know, getting a great management team that was hustling and working for us and getting those opportunities, you know what I mean? Like we played some really crazy spaces, you know, and it's because of our management getting us into those spaces. And so I think that played a huge part. And I think, you know, kind of controlling our own narrative too, you know, not being kind of like, as Indigenous artists, it's very easily to be steered in a certain way. So I think that staying true to our culture and making sure that, you know, the music and the culture is first, and keeping true to that, I think we really kind of like made these spaces, explode, you know, some of these spots. The Met, you know, like I went and played at the Met, you know, and it's one of those crazy art galleries that you never think you would be able to play in, you know what I mean? So yeah, I really give credit to management to get us into these spaces, because that's their industry, that's their hustle. Yeah, and so
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I hope it's okay to ask, like I know I had this conversation with Chris too. I didn't get into it with Ace and Abby as much, but just knowing, like you had said, like, you know, Indigenous artists not having maybe the same access to, you know, the things that we've all now learned are so important about having a good team and the right kind of team that takes care of different things for you. I know that when I talked to Chris, and I've talked to some others, you know, one of the common experiences they've had is running into the wrong people who, you know, pressure people to quote unquote act less Indigenous in order to have a wider audience, or all kinds of pressures that just come from basically just kind of really like context blind, typical, you know, white corporate people who are just trying to market it, you know, right up to like very hard to hide racism, I'm sure experiences. So I'm wondering how, like, is that sort of part of what you were talking about? And, you know, I guess there's a line in there where I'm curious at this point, because we're talking now, how you've maybe seen, has that evolved? Has it gotten better for Indigenous artists to be able to find people who understand and can work with them the right way?
yeah, I think there is. I mean, when we started, you know, like when I started with a Tribe Called Red, our team was really it was non-Indigenous. So we had a non-Indigenous manager. So, and then when I branched off and did my solo work, I had an Indigenous manager for the first time. But then the load got really too heavy for him, and he was the one that passed me off to my current manager, who is non-Indigenous. So, I mean, I think since then there has been there you'll see a lot more, you know, on the management side and the business side of things in the music industry. I hope that there is. I haven't really been looking, because you know, me and my manager have been tight for a while. But I think when it comes to the business side of things, yeah, I think there is a lack of that. First Nations management teams and stuff like that out there, but I do see some popping up here and there. So I'm sure it's evolving, you know, as the music is, and as artists, as Indigenous artists are becoming more recognized, you know, and doing bigger things. I just had a friend, Stella Standing Bear. She just made the Billboard charts in the States with one of her songs, and she's
That's great.
you know, which is amazing, you know what I mean? And like what we did, you know, as a Tribe Called Red, winning a mainstream Juno award on TV. You know, when is the last time you've seen that? You know, like it's crazy to these little things are wins for us, right? And wins for our people. Yeah. So when we do things like that, it's very special, and it just, you know, opens doors for the next generation. And I get to see that too, like doing workshops and doing stuff with the youth, and getting out to these communities, and I see the change, and I see the drive in some of these kids, man. And that really that they have so much to express and so much music to express, but the business side of things isn't there. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that I try to help, and like as much as I can and as much advice as I can give them, I give them.
Yeah. I mean, access to that kind of stuff is always an issue. I think it's an issue, period, in the music industry. A definite issue in Canada because just the way our geography is with such focused urban centers and so spread out. But then I think that obviously gets further complicated because we have just such an uncomfortable, terrible history in Canada of, white industry learning how to work with indigenous people. I think we see it in regular industry. It's not surprising to me that it would exist the same way in music industry, right? And I guess part of my question in there might be, like, we just have such a, for all the work that's been done, it just, sometimes I'm sure it's exponential for you, to me, obviously, is to sit in 2026 and go, really? Are we still, I thought we were past some of these things and some of these narratives and some of this rhetoric. But I guess I'm kind of curious whether in your experience and career, when you got to those places, even with your first DJ battling, when you leave Canada, does the experience really change a lot? Like, because you're meeting the business people and stuff, and how you're either, treated, or how the business kind of looks at you or treats you, or what the narratives are. Does it change?
I think it was
leave Canada.
I think it was different. Like I saw two types when I would travel. So in the beginning, when I went over for the DJ battling stuff, I was immersed into this underground turntable culture, and that's all it was. People didn't see color, people didn't ask where I was from, people didn't have questions. It was based on, everybody was there for the same type of love, the love for turntablism and the love for DJing. But the second time I went over the pond, and I went as a Tribe Called Red. We were with the group and we went to Germany. That was a totally different experience because now I'm representing the culture, right? And now I'm representing our culture and bringing it to them, and differently. And for the most part, it was shocking for them because they really didn't realize that we had problems in Canada, like that we do, with the way our people are treated and everything. They are ignorant to that, but that's not their history, right? Like, so they were kind of shocked to find out that it wasn't hunky dory here. You know what I mean? So, and it's weird too, because like in places like Germany, like it was funny when we got there, they would call us Indianeers, which is a very weird, different term than I've ever heard before. You know what I mean? So, and we really liked it because it was different. It was like, okay, so we're not Indians, but we're not pioneers. We're kind of like in the middle. You know what I mean? So it's like they had a different label for us. So, and a label that I've never heard before. So it didn't really hurt me much, so. But it was weird because their culture, they love indigenous culture over there. They have like this, they throw powwows over there and like, and just it's not out of like disrespect. It's just, they respect our culture so much that this is what they feel that they need to do. So it was kind of weird to see, and they just loved they loved us, they embraced us so well, and it was very cool. But it was a very different experience. Like I said, when I went over with the DJ battling thing, where I wasn't, representing my culture, I was representing the art form.
Yeah, that's a definite split. I mean, the Germany thing is interesting too, that they feel so comfortable and not consider it tokenism in any way. That's a really interesting thing to experience. I think that, what you were detailing about the battling thing too, right, is like what so many people would strive for. I guess I think, again, these are conversations I've had with some of the people that I've had the privilege. I've sat on the Arts Council board here in Edmonton and different boards where I get to sit alongside people and hear their experiences in various forms of the arts, not just the music scene, and what they kind of have gone through in Canada and then the difference elsewhere. But that I think I had come to a point where I realized, I'm like, why do I, as a white man, sometimes get made to feel uncomfortable? Not made to feel, I feel uncomfortable. I make myself feel uncomfortable in certain things. And I think I realized that I think what's really cool that I've always watched is like a lot of indigenous music so freely integrates their culture, right? And it feels like white people music tries to like parse everything out. Do you know what I mean? And not be that way. And I've tried to identify as like that the part that's like weird that you know what I mean? Like there's so much culture, there's even spirituality, there's these things that so often just aren't a part of, you know, the music that I got raised on, but it's so prevalent inside of indigenous music. Has there ever been pressure in the industry to tone it down for indigenous artists and kind of wearing their culture and even wearing the issues on their sleeve?
Not that I've seen, you know, for the most part, it's been the opposite. It's like, you know,
that's cool.
We love it. Put more into it. You know what I mean? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's been the opposite, which is nice. I mean, and I've been lucky to see that change, you know, like being out there and playing shows. And from the very beginning, like I always give this example, is like when we used to play at festivals and electronic festivals and stuff in the very beginning, you know, you'd see people out there, you'd see non-indigenous people out there with headdresses on and war paint. And like, you know, that was a thing at festivals. But,
yeah,
you know, the ignorance is just them not knowing, you know, and a lot of the times it just took us to be like, hey, man, that's not cool. This is why it's not cool. And it was like, okay, cool. I get it. Or, you know, they would hear the music and ask the questions, you know, when they saw the music and saw the visuals, you know, it would make them think themselves, sort of thing. So that was a cool part of this music, is that it's not a forced political thing. You know, it makes you think without thinking. You know what I mean? While you're enjoying it, you know, that, and that's why art and politics and music, they go together so well. And like, because you get to sneak in what you get to sneak in those the political jabs, or you get to sneak in what's happening without them knowing it. You know what I mean? Sort of thing. So, but yeah, like at festivals, we eventually got to see where all festivals put a ban on headdresses, you know, and that was directly from like the issue that we brought up, and was like, yeah, we used to fight that issue all the time. There were people because they were showing up to kind of out of the ignorance that they weren't taught, you know, they were just showing up trying to respect us and show, you know, that they love us. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
we told them we love you too, but just don't wear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so we're doing it, but
yeah.
What happened, you know, and we saw that change. Now you go to electronic festival and you never see that anymore. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that is cool to see that change.
Yeah, I think it is cool. I think you're right. I mean, I know that in my life, like art and artists and music has done more to make me challenge, right? My own, like the biases, the privilege, the prejudices that you grow up with, you get to be an adult. I'm way more likely to let, you know, the music and those things that I respect so deeply challenge me than, you know, some guy on a podium or someone telling me the way it has to be or what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so it's been a big part of my life. So I think it's great that you've been able to experience seeing firsthand where those things have actually changed, right?
Yeah.
In history. Let's jump to the part, like, so you decide to leave Tribe Called Red and kind of move on with your own stuff. There's a little bit of a gap in time, a couple of years before, you know, a lot of singles and stuff start showing up and you're producing. This is another part about electronic music that it's interesting to me. You know, again, I come from the era of like everything's an album, right? And you know, the rest of pop music has kind of started to shift towards like, oh, maybe we don't have to put albums out all the time. We can just produce singles and keep my career going. Mm-hmm. But definitely in electronic music and dance music and you know, and probably hip hop, the first more mainstream adopting this idea of just producing singles regularly. So you did that for a number of years. I guess I have a brass tacks question, is like, how does a guy support himself or his family or whoever, you know, in a 4, 5, 6 year period of producing singles? I'm assuming, are you getting standing DJ gigs? Are you producing for other people? How do you do that typical music business thing where I got to do a bunch of different things to keep, you know, the income rolling in and keep my career going?
Yeah. You know, being an artist is there's many avenues, royalties, a huge one.
Yeah.
Licensing is another big one. You know, those two things really kept the lights on and the food on the table. You know what I mean? Licensing for different movies, TV shows, and stuff like that. And yeah, royalties, those two things right there. And then live shows, you know, like in the summertime is always busy in the summer. This year, not so busy because we've been on a rollout for this album. But yeah, you know, that's the bread and butter for any musician is getting out there and playing, doing the summer tour thing. So yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to have those other streams of revenue come in. So yeah, and streaming is the worst one. That's the most terrible one. It doesn't pay anything. So it's the
saddest part of it all.
I mean, all artists deal with it. So it's the biggest. I was watching an Ice-T thing, and Ice-T said it's the biggest pimp game ever. And, you know, like they pimp a song out for 0.007 cents. You know what I mean? He was like something about how do you get more out of a dollar? He goes, that's pimp maneuvers right there. So yeah, that's
so
funny.
true. I mean, it's really so like, again, sort of age related. When I started really understanding the music business, you know, it's the 80s, it's the mid 80s, and the gap between, there was almost no such thing as like up and coming indie, you know, in the mid 80s. Like all you saw was MTV and, you know, hair rock bands and people living in excess all the time. And so like you either were like making the millions or your career was done and flopped before anything. And the best you could hope was that CanCon got you on the radio for about a year. You know, and then there seemed through the 90s, like the grunge scene opened up what I felt was like this indie scene in music, and then it spread, and then the middle class started to fill in, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, I feel like this whole Spotify streaming payment revenue crisis, you know, it works really well for you if you're the multi-million-dollar selling artist.
It only works for a few. You know what I mean?
Like it really, really works for them. Like the amount they're making when they hit billions of streams becomes ridiculous because like that's a machine. They might as well just go to sleep for forever. You know what I mean? It's just going to keep making money while they sleep. But the rest of us, not a chance. So for a DJ,
AI stuff. You know, now you're competing now they have AI songs being uploaded to Spotify and you're finding out all this other stuff. It's, you know, now you're competing with all that, which is insane.
Is that especially challenging to you? I'm making a bit of an assumption, and you can tell me if I'm dead wrong too, but like it feels to me like of all the musical styles and elements that would be the easiest for the computer to regenerate, it would be electronic beats and such. Like, does it come for your genre first before everybody else's? Is AI coming for you guys the first? Have you felt that or talked about it with anyone?
You would think that, but I've heard some AI songs that aren't electronic music that are unbelievable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
It's not just electronic music that is that AI is attacking these days. But I know the one thing, AI is great for a tool, and I think that's where it should stop. You know, using it as a full-fledged music making machine and putting it out there, I think that's where it's kind of you're walking the line, you know, of whatever line that is. But I mean, I think if you use it as a tool to get to point A to point B, just like anything else, you know, before there was AI, there was, you know, you find a workaround for anything, you know what I mean? So AI just gets you there faster and quicker. But I mean, the whole using of AI, you know, you want to get started with that, and is a bad thing to begin with. But I mean, it's inevitable. You know what I mean? This thing is a big big machine. You know, now Well,
we've had these moments in history, right, where the question is, just because we can do this thing now, should we be doing this thing now? But inevitably, it keeps happening over and over. So I think that's why the creative industries are feeling uncomfortable, because I get it, like you, like I get it. It's like, this is the talk in my regular day job stuff every day. You know, it's no different than any other computer revolution that we've had since the 80s of, of like, yeah, there's parts of our work that are redundant as people that it makes a lot easier. Like, let's automate some processes. Let's take that stuff. I'd rather do this stuff that's creative and takes my time to think about and feel, you know, and express anyhow. But it's definitely a challenge for sure. So you've by 2020, you moved into releasing some full-length albums. Like, you released a full-length album, and then again, you know, like last year, you released Heritage Part 1. So you clearly had a plan about 2 as like Heritage 2 to be released here. Some very cool collaborations. So it's very much more, I don't know where the blurry line is, admittedly, in like DJing, where you're mashing up things together and essentially creating something new, but you're using some things that were made. And there's lots of different versions and layers to that, I know, but getting to this point where you're making an album of, you know, original stuff that you create, you're collabing with people who, you know, and I don't know whether those vocalists like Sebastian Gaskin, who's like an incredible vocalist on your latest single, and it's awesome to hear him sing the way he sang on that track too, by the way, whether they're actually involved in the whole lyric writing or melody making, or how far you go and where you end and where they begin. I'm interested in, how you've gotten into the collab process like that.
Yeah. So collaborating was it was a newer thing to me. You know, I was always been just an instrumental kind of guy. My previous, album, War Club, the one I won a Juno for, was the first time I really started collaborating with other artists. So I learned a lot. You know, I got to work with amazing people, but I never got into a studio and sat one-on-one with somebody and worked with them. It was the first that War Club album was a lot of it was just through the internet. I sent you something, you send something back with vocals on it, and so back and forth sort of thing. So that was a great experience. You know, it was new for me with working with people. But with Heritage, we set out to, you know, I want to get in the studio. I want to get into the room with these guys. So that's how we did it. Every collaboration on the album, we went into the studio and we just sat together. We had the song play, and I just watched these artists, just magic happen. They just kind of came up with some lyrics, you know, and I helped up with some melodies at some points and the structure of what should happen. But it was just all natural. It just happened in every studio session. It happened with every artist, and it was just such a magical moment. And I'm so happy I did that. Now I'm addicted to that now. You know what I mean? So yeah. So that was a very cool thing. So and every session was really cool to watch happen.
Yeah, that's cool. So you have this, you know, the second half, the Heritage Part 2 coming out. That often, you know, we talked before about having a team. I'm sure there's a plan, as always, heading into summer, like you said. What does that look like in your world? Like, sort of, how do you sort of roll out and build the hype and try to sustain it for, you know, I don't know how long you can sustain it in this world anymore. I remember when there were 18-month cycles and then 12-month cycles. I don't know. Is it a 2-month cycle now? I'm not sure. But how do you roll this out and try to sustain it in, you know, in the electronic DJ world?
So Part 2 was actually Part 1 and 2 were one big album to begin with, right? So I had about 40 songs that we were like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to make a double LP? You know what I mean? Bring it out as a double album. But the team was like, they were smart and they said, no, why don't we split it up into this way? You have content and you're releasing stuff for the next year and a half, you know, instead of putting all your eggs in one basket. And then, you know, where does it go from there? And, you know, and to be fair, it's like we had so many awesome collaborations, you know, like, I love that we split it up this way. Each single got its shine, you know what I mean? Sort of thing. Instead of having, you know, this list of collaborators and only being able to put out 3 singles, you know, for this thing. Once we had the idea of splitting the album up, I said, okay, this is going to work, you know, like this is going to work better. We get more singles out there. So now that instead of 3, now there's 6 singles out there before the whole album drops. So it was just one of those things that like, hey, let's try it, man. Let's do it. Let's extend this whole thing out. So now we have content for the next year and a half. So that's where it came out. And so, yeah, part one went really amazing. I was so happy with part one. And yeah, part two is, I'm getting excited to, and it's funny for me. It's like these songs, like, I've had these songs, I started writing them right after War Club. So they've been kind of just collectively sitting there for, since 2002, 2003, you know what I mean? So for me to finally get everything out and this last part two album, like, okay, let's just, this is out. And so we're talking about putting them both together as a double LP at one point. So hopefully that happens. It'd be pretty cool.
Well, this was part of my thought, right? You sort of indicated like, any normal record making process, you've been sitting with songs a long time before they get out to the world. But this idea that you had 40 songs, this, like, your prolificness creates a real problem then, because you sit on them before things get produced and released. Now you decide to split it up in two so you can extend kind of the lifespan of this, content filling. But if you're prolific, what do you do with the 40 songs you wrote while you're putting together these ones to be released? And so forth. I worked with this Canadian artist, Andy Schaaf, in the early stages of his career, and he was prolific as well. I just remember him coming to me with a double album, and I was like, why don't we split it? I think I said maybe split it in two, or, I could hear in the songs that there was an easy way to break it. And his issue was, he was prolific. He was like, no, he'll be bored of those songs and want to move on to a new set. And I was just thinking with a business marketing mindset. But so are you like, was that a burst of inspiration, or are you sort of generally that prolific in just creating and creating and creating and having kind of a war chest all the time?
Creating. Like, I got another 40 songs waiting.
There you go.
While this is happening, like, I've been creating so many other stuff. So, I mean, that's not a bad thing. You know what I mean?
No, make it their problem. That's their problem to figure out. You just
exactly. Yeah.
Right?
I'll build the content. You just figure out how it goes out. So, yeah. So that's where we're at right now, basically.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be cool. I really hope that whole release and rollout continues to be as rewarding as you said part one has been. I'm curious, just kind of to wrap up. I appreciate the time you've given me here, Shub, to talk about your career. But, I love asking the question of people who have been at it for a little while about inspiration, like right now, because we all start out with knowing what our North Stars and our early influences are, and we want to be like them. We want to mimic them. We want to be part of the fabric of whatever they were. Then we end up doing it for a long time. I'm always curious where you're finding new inspiration now, whether it be, are there like new artists sort of challenging, the genres and subgenres that you work in? Are there people even outside of that, just like not even your lane, that you find really inspiring, that sort of bring on this level of creativity that you seem to have?
I think right now my biggest influence is my son. He's 18 and he's following in his dad's footsteps. He's producing, and the music he's producing is incredible. He's learned what took me 15, 20 years to learn. He's learned in like 3 years.
Wow.
So, and he's building his own, vault of music, just like I do. Like he's working with other people now. He released his own stuff on his own, without my help, and which is incredible. So, sometimes you don't have to look too far for inspiration.
Yeah. Well, so what you're saying is down the road, I'm going to have a father-son episode. I had one last year. Last year, listen, Shub, no lie. Like, I had a friend on who's, late 40s, has been sort of like the barstool balladeer troubadour, he calls himself. And he's got this son who's making this new kind of music, goes out to Vancouver on his own, wants to, anyhow. And I wanted them to talk together about being at these two different poles in life, and what they learned from each other, what they learned on their own. It was a great conversation. It's also the most downloaded episode I've had.
Really?
So far.
Oh, wow.
It's been so it's pretty cool. So who knows? I may be tapping your shoulder for another cool conversation like that.
There you go.
The road. So I'm gonna keep my eye on it. But Well, I appreciate the time. Like I said, there's like lots of things for me to learn from you. And I find that really enjoyable. And I appreciate you sort of being open about all that stuff and looking forward to seeing the record come out and get some success. And I don't know what it takes to win a Juno these days, but maybe there's, another little room on your shelf for another one.
There's always room. There's always room. If not, on the shelf. Thanks great. A lot, Gwen. I appreciate it. May 1st, go grab the album, go listen to it.
May 1st. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for Post Fame with me and my dad. Good evening. How are you?
Fine.
Fine.
I feel like I haven't seen you very much today.
No, you haven't.
Or maybe yesterday.
Or the day before. I've been working.
Yeah. School's done. You've transitioned back to working hard.
Yeah.
In other things. Good for you.
Yeah, it just means I never see you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I had to hear how you were today through a friend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Didn't
I guess
know.
that's legit. And welcome to Post Fame.
With Alexi. And Glenn. Yeah.
For our episode 42 with Shub.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I realized last week during Post Fame, I called the episode with Danielle McTaggart. I called that episode 42.
Oh, that's really awkward.
So
our Post Fame or in the actual episode?
Post Fame.
Oh,
no, just Post Fame. So a bit of a retraction on that.
That's
I can't
awkward.
really do anything about it. Took me 41 episodes to make that mistake. I guess
that's a valid number.
That's not a bad ratio, maybe. Anyhow, I know I have some things to talk about some stuff. Do you want me to talk about the episode or about the other things that are on my mind?
Up to you, King. I don't know. What do you feel like? Do you think we're going to end up looping back to the episode? Because sometimes we don't.
We can loop back to the episode.
But what is Post Fame really? Like it started us to just, talk about the episode, but I feel like it's diverged. I feel like the boundaries are a lot more loose.
Well, no, we were also going to share
like music and
suggestions and recommendations because that's what you and I were spending so much time doing in the car and stuff like that. Which is where I'm going to start because we're already 2 minutes of rambling into this thing.
Okay.
So I might as well start with I don't do this very often, but I've been doing it more often where maybe I even pick just one song and just let Spotify go off of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you ever hit the radio or do you just let it shuffle?
No, sometimes I do radio, and maybe this instance that I'm going to talk about came out of the radio, but I'm picky. I can be picky. So I'll be doing that and I'll often just be like blam, blam, blam.
Oh, I do it in the car.
And I hate it when Spotify essentially just kind of locks into about the same 5 artists. Do you know what I mean? And so it's basically like the 5 and then maybe they'll sprinkle something new in once in a while in between. But in this instance, I was just driving and I remember it kept bringing up artists I hadn't really heard before. Mm. And it was kind of in the roots Americana kind of vein. So I was listening, and then it's funny because this one that came on just felt like the real familiar guitar tones of a lot of people I know. Yeah. Even a past guest, Leroy Stagger, has music that fits with this artist a lot, but I had never heard of it before. I let it play rather than because I had been in a happy skippy mode, and I stopped myself and I listened to this whole song, and then I was like, I think I really like it. There was something about his voice, but then I could just hear more. I could hear some real, you could hear the passion for it. You could hear maybe the hurt in it or whatever the thing is communicating. And I'm like, okay, not everybody does that as effectively as this person. So I looked it up. I had never heard before Josiah and the Bonnevilles.
I was going to say Josiah and something Moon, but I was incorrect. I think you said a song that I knew it was Josiah when you were playing it.
How do you know that?
From that same song you were just playing. That's how I discovered him on a...
Oh, his cover of Ghost?
Mm-hmm, his cover of Ghost.
Because it's got 77 million listens.
On that cover?
Well, yeah. So this is the thing.
It was just on... It was on multiple Spotify radios. For when you go to a song and you make a Spotify radio, so it comes up with a little playlist of similar. It was on there. So
I've said this before, how I get so surprised sometimes. I've never heard of this artist. Maybe they're up and coming. And then first shocker to my system is like 77 million listens on his
Yeah.
cover of Ghost, or even 25 and 55 million on songs from his like latest record.
It's a lot.
And I'm like, what's this guy like? Where is this person?
It's that
right?
Spotify cheat code.
That they're that they're generating like that much interest in that many listens, or did they go viral on a thing? And but then that's where I'd be again, like, how do I not know? Like, so I'm gonna say the name Josiah and the Bonnevilles. People should go listen. But so I did the quick Google Wikipedia thing.
Oh yeah.
And here's what's funny about the story, right? That really just adds again to the like, there's so many people trying to make it out there, and some people have careers that are really good careers and probably are somebody's favorite artist, and I would have no idea. So I need to stop being such a music snob sometimes. Like, anyhow, like I forgot his name here. I gotta go pick it up again. Oh yeah, his real name's Josiah Lemming, and he like had a brief appearance on like American Idol in 2007, Lexi.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Got the attention of someone at Warner Brothers in 2008. Gets signed to a record deal. Again, I had to go use his real name on Spotify. Oh, the dog's joining us. Hi, pup. Don't be a nuisance. Okay. Anyhow, so he like, if I look up his real name, he's got like 4 records back in 2008, 9, 10, 11. And then he like falls off at like 2012 or 13. And then there's nothing. And then if you look up Josiah and the Bonnevilles, then all of a sudden there's records starting around 2020, 21.
Oh, so you had a bit of a gap.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, man, there's a story there. Like, I'm just so curious about the story. But this guy's been doing it for a long time. Anyhow.
He must have started young.
That's a lot of story. But I just thought it's like, we haven't talked about new music.
No.
Or new to us music for a while. And I want to listen to a lot more. Yeah, he started young for sure. And it's just interesting how someone can have a whole career and millions of listens and a bunch of records. And I just had no idea. But I'm like, we crap all over the algorithms all the time. But once in a while,
a little present.
Yeah, then once in a while it just shows up, with something with a bow on it for me.
Yeah. Do I see my favorite artist lately?
Oh, yeah. Visually. Oh, okay. Well, maybe... How are you influencing me? Oh, no, it's because you were playing your playlist in the car that I saw that name on the screen.
Yes.
And I was going to say something about, it's Odie Lee.
Yeah.
And I was going
You know her?
No, but I was going to make a comment about, like who would name their kid Odie? Like,
I think it's an awesome name.
It's the dog in Garfield.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awkward.
The dumb dog. And that's the spelling of it.
That's funny.
But I mean, maybe that's a stage name. Maybe that's not even
Spotify algorithm conversation. And this happens to me all of the time. But so I'll give context. Heard one of the songs just on like, again, like I played one of my favorite playlists I made lately, and then it just, it finished. And so it went on its algorithm drive, and one of the songs from her 2024 album, Carrier Pigeon, played, and I listened to it, but I didn't pay much attention, and then it was in my head for days. Found it again through like searching the lyrics, listened to it on repeat, and then I realized I loved the entire album. Like, I play it, it's like my quick click in the car, and I can just listen to the entire thing. I love it. I think it's 10 out of 10. And then I go to her profile because I'm like, let me see her other albums. And her like kind of newest thing out is that she did a feature on Flip Turn's song, their new song.
Oh.
Flip Turn is a band I've been listening to for ages, and who I love, and who like inspired a lot of me getting into more like kind of indie alternative rock type of sounds.
Oh, bless Flip Turn then.
And I was just like, that's so funny, like, because she is so different from them. Like, she's a very, very different artist. Her music is very different. If like that is not a collab I would have imagined on my own. But then I was like, how funny that they just like also had like that, because I was like, I would have gone and listened to that song, like at some point.
Paid no attention to the feature artist.
Or I would have listened to that song, and then I would have like heard her as a feature, and then gone and like discovered her that way. So I'm like, oh, like there was multiple roads that were gonna lead me to her, and I just think that's cool sometimes on like Spotify. But yeah, I thought when I listened to her album is so well put together that I was like, oh, she probably like is quite popular, like like what you just said. Like you listen to something, you're like, this is really good.
Oh,
And
you're
then
gonna give me the opposite? She has 300 listens.
no, she has like almost 200,000. But like the album's so well put together. I thought she was gonna be one of those ones where I think I discover it and then I go and look and it's like 4 million monthly listeners and I'm like, oh, I've just been like in the
Yeah.
dark. But she's the opposite, and I'm like, I would expect her to have like 4 million or something.
Well, I don't think 200,000 qualifies as you discovering it.
No, it's not.
200,000
It's a
people
lot.
beat you to it.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. But like, there's not 4 million, is what I'm saying.
No, you're right. It's like, yeah.
Also, though, I
It's
was
the
like reading
difference
her
between
bio.
like the city of Red Deer beat you to it versus like the cities of Calgary and Edmonton combined
Yes.
beat you to it.
Exactly.
Plus.
But here's my other thing though, is why I feel like, and this is me totally just being cocky and kind of a jerk, but I like read her little bio and it said that in like 2023, like whatever recently, she blew up on TikTok and released stuff, and then then it was like blew up on TikTok, and I'm like, you know what? That means most of that 200,000 is off TikTok. Guess who doesn't have TikTok? Me. I'm like, I feel like one of those gym bros who's like, I'm natty and none of you are, like, kind of thing.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know that when anybody like throws the word little in front of something, you're pretty sure that there's a little bit of like patronizing that's gonna
What?
come afterwards? When you're like, I just came here and I read her little bio.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
It's
just think
like
that,
saying
it's
to someone,
cute.
it's like, hey, while you're over there sitting in your, little office, like, why don't you, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't see it that way. I guess I understand how that could come off that way.
I feel like it's not far removed from like somebody like doing the like
maybe you're just like really
the
sassy.
head bob on their shoulders and like
goodness.
almost getting towards like a talk to the hand.
Well, that's good to know because sometimes I'm like to dudes like, oh, I like your little outfit. Like you're so cute.
Yeah, see, that's patronizing.
Oh, I see. I
right?
didn't know that. Like
You
I mean
just-
that very genuinely.
That's not a genuine tone of voice.
No, that is. Like, okay, well, that was
What?
me recreating it. It's more genuine in the moment. But, like, if you were, like, the outfit does it, they're like, oh, I like your little outfit.
Yeah, you say little outfit, and I'm just like, okay.
Oh, see, kid, I didn't know this. No one told me. Sorry to, like, I guess this is my PSA of the day. Sorry to everyone who's interacted with me in the last few years.
Okay.
Okay, so how was your little episode?
How's my little episode? It was so cute.
How was little
just
Shub?
Cute. That's not. No, we don't. Okay. Shub is awesome. Shub. Yeah, like the whole. Well, honestly, like my favorite part was at near the end when I just was asking him about his influences and like currently, like what's influenced him, and he's talked about how his son's following in his footsteps. You can just see him kind of light up
that's so cute.
and be so proud. And, yeah, I'm just like, that's just
The dream,
fantastic,
yeah.
that he's like doing all that kind of stuff and he's able to be a part of it, and you can see it makes him really happy.
I also
Like,
just like that, you ask him his influences right now, and the first thing he thinks about is, like, his son and, like...
well, the only thing, like what was clear to me was
Yeah.
like, that was very quick response, and it was the only answer he had.
Yeah, which I love, because he could have just spewed off, like, a couple artists he likes right now, And I'm like, that's a big show of character.
Yeah. Or even do what a lot of others have done, I've noticed, which is not reference music at all.
Mhm.
Which I'm almost starting to come to expect from somebody who's got 20 plus years in a career,
Yeah, like, oh, this life event or this part
Yeah.
of my... Yeah.
Yeah, but if anybody, I guess one of the things I walked away with is like, and you see this once in a while, but if anybody that I've talked to or met felt like their entire trajectory was like, this was really the only path for this person, like it was clear to me, like that was kind of true of Shub, right? Like from...
Like, this is what they were born to do.
Yeah, the minute he started, like, thanks to his brother, like, having turntables, right? And learning to DJ and mix, it was clear, like, there was, like, nothing else. And it seems like, he's just been successful with whatever he makes, too.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes hand in hand, right? Like, so I think that's pretty cool.
I like that.
That was kind of my overall feeling about it. And I liked that unique part of the conversation. I liked a lot, I will just say, about like his like passion for his culture.
Yeah, that
part
was
of
one of
it,
my notes about it.
you know, and that
Yeah.
the way he speaks about it, it's like there's always an issue to discuss or to, you know what I mean, on the cusp. But he doesn't feel like he has to jump all over it and jump into every platform for it, even though, you know, it's like in the chamber and the, you know, waiting to be used. But and I would have been open to if he had wanted to chat more about that kind of stuff, but I try to be sensitive. Not everybody wants to
have that be their whole thing.
They don't want to just jump on the soapbox every time. I'm sure maybe that's it. Maybe it's other things. Whoever knows. But it's clear, you know, his history, his career is pretty clear about how he's handled all that. So I love it. I love, you know, anyhow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I also like I didn't know about that. I didn't know about another thing. But like on that note, I also like he kind of like when he talked about like issues, like in terms of like, you know, social issue type things like you were just talking about, how when he was talking about like, because, you know, he brought it up as in like, you know, there's always an issue and there are like these issues. But when like he talked about the other side, which is like addressing it and all that, it was like his just like natural answer was more that like he's kind of like combated that with like his art.
Yeah.
Rather than like getting on his soapbox or like his podium and, you know, which is also like a fair and fine reaction, but it's just like unique. I think like I don't think we've really had anyone like, especially like we've had quite a few women on and we've talked about like feminist related issues.
Yep.
And like in music, and it's been like, you know, here's the things I do or here's my like reactions. And I don't really think we've heard anyone be like, you know, that the way they respond to those things is like their art.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, like just to see.
I think
it's like just like it's like interesting because like people talk about like using like art as like a tool, like a multifaceted tool, and it's like that's not a facet you often necessarily think about.
Yeah, I think that I see sometimes that if somebody chooses to stand up for a message or a cause via their music, their entire career and identity inside of music might get trapped in that silo. And
like they just advocate.
Yeah, yeah. And because perception is everything, right? And people often will lock you in. But I just thought it was noticeable to me that he wasn't interested in talking in silos. To him, it's like, you know, the first Juno they won, it wasn't for an indigenous category. It was just for the art itself, right? So that exact premise right there where it's about the art itself. And he can carry both in each hand equally, right? That one hand is, I've always got something to talk about the state of my people, and my art is my art, and I make electronic music, right? And when I go to these competitions, it's not about anybody's background or race or anything. It's just about the music. And he's kind of been blessed, I think, in that his particular genre is like extremely, you know, as he describes it, kind of ambivalent in comparison to a lot of the rest of the world as far as locking people into their histories. So that was a pretty cool observation to hear.
Yeah.
And his background. So yeah.
Very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. My other one I like don't even want to get into because you and I just go on the same tangent every time.
Okay.
But it was him talking about like streaming and it not being like
enough
and all that. Like I was like, oh, I could just.
It was just another like log on the fire, really, right? Like he's got his experiences that he can speak to, and it just kind of adds to the truth of it all, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, but
you're valid.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Bye.